If you have 10 minutes, I'm going to show you how you can recreate this in Photoshop. The first thing you're going to want to do is load your player onto the canvas. And these two pictures were already cut out, so I didn't have to do anything for them. And this next one, I got all of them from his Instagram. I just didn't screen record editing the first two and cropping them. But right here, before I crop it and try to just get the player out from the background and just separate them, I like to add a camera raw filter a lot of times because it helps get a better cutout. Because sometimes whenever I load some of these images like this one on my laptop, it's not as bright as I originally thought it was. So I just made it a little brighter. So right here I can go to the selection tool and crop out my player. And it usually does a pretty good job of cropping out whatever you want, like whatever you select pretty well. But right here you can tell the shoulder pads and the hair, they look a little off. So I tried adjusting it back to normal with using the shift edge down there, but it didn't really work. So I knew I was gonna have to go back in there and edit that back on later. And then the next thing I did was add the last photo I was gonna use. And for this one, it was a little different because I was only going to use his head area, and it took a little bit longer than expected because, as you can see right here, it didn't crop out much of anything other than his face. So I sped it up here, but I had to go back in and erase all of the. Well, I had to first draw it back on because it wasn't there, but then I had to erase everything that I didn't want on there, the background. And then right here, I was just adjusting the players to try to see the best way to arrange them. I knew I wanted the full body picture to be the main picture in the middle, but I had no intentions prior to doing this graphic on how I was going to design it. So it took me a minute to find the exact layout that I wanted, but that typically happens when you don't have a layout in mind or on your laptop that you're going to do. And then the next thing I did right here was I just loaded, I don't know what part of the stadium this is for Texas A&M. I'm guessing the front. I've never been there, but I just thought it looked really cool. So I wanted to add that to the bottom part of the graphic. And then I wanted to get out everything that wasn't the stadium, like the background sky right there. So I just went back in and erased all of that. And after doing that, I wanted to do a camera raw filter on the graphics that I didn't already do it on. So right here, I was just going in and seeing what looks best for this specific graphic. You'll see, if you haven't been doing this for long on Photoshop, you'll see that most graphics are very different. Well, not very different, but they definitely are different for most on like what settings you're going to use for your camera raw filter. And it might take you a few times. You might have to go back in and delete it and then redo it, but you'll get the hang of it eventually. And then the next thing I did was add part of the stadium that says one of their slogans, which is home of the 12th man. I added that in the top right corner. And then I added some shadows under the feet right here. And I can give a more in-depth tutorial because I'm obviously speeding it up right here on how to do shadows. And you can slow it down if you want to see on how I did it. All it is just changing the size of the brush to more of like a sideways oval type shape and just messing around with the opacity. But yeah, doing shadows under, like for players' feet and other things is really as simple as just changing the size of the brush and the opacity and then adding some noise like I'm doing right here. But I can do a more in-depth video if you want to see. And then the next thing I'm going to do after that is go back into the same picture that I just did the camera raw filter for. And I didn't like how the reds weren't really popping out on his helmet. So I just went back in there and just really increased the reds and the texture to try to make it pop as much as I can. And then right here, as you can see, his lips and then part of his face is not black and white. So what I did was, there's probably an easier way to do it, but this is the quickest way I know. I just created a vector mask using the pen tool. And I just selected that part that I wanted to make black and white. And I exported it and then just imported it back over and create a black and white. I know there's definitely an easier way to do it. So if you know one, definitely drop it in the comments or message me so I can show an easier way to do it. But that's just the quickest way I know. So it looks better right there. You can see it's black and white. And then right here, I wanted to do a camera raw filter on the other picture that I didn't do it yet, that I didn't do it for yet. And usually the main things that I'm trying to do to make it pop are increase the texture and the clarity, and then usually some sharpening as well. It just makes it pop more. And sometimes I have to go back in, like I said, and do it a few times because I don't get it exactly right the first time. And then the next thing I'm gonna do after the camera raw filter, I'm gonna add his name in, and I want to make that big to make it pop because I'm not gonna be adding too much more to the graphic. And he's a cornerback for Texas A&M, so he has a nickname called the Blanket, and it's in his Twitter and his Instagram. So I just wanted to add that as well to make it pop a little bit more. And I end up skipping it right here, but this is what the name looks like after I edit it. And then I want to fade that top picture of the fans and the home of the 12th man sign into the name to make it look a little bit cooler. And then this next bar, I just looked up paper tears online because I thought it looked weird fading into a white space. So I just added a paper tear because I thought that looked cool. This next part right here, you might need to slow down the video a little bit just to catch exactly what I'm doing. So you're going to go over to the eyedropper tool, and then you're going to go to whatever color you like the most that's on the graphic. And I like the red that was on the helmet. So using the eyedropper tool, I selected the exact color that was on the helmet and I copied it. And then I went over to the gradient tool so I can draw the shadow of that exact color onto the graphic and on a specific part of the graphic, so I don't have to like make it a solid color and affect the whole graphic. And then I usually, like right here, I change the opacity down. I usually never keep it at 100% just because it's usually too much of that color. And right here, I thought I liked the color that it was at, but I thought it needed noise, so I just went back in and added a little bit of noise to make it pop a little bit more. And then after doing that, one thing that I think looks cool on a lot of these graphics is whenever they have like their X handle or their Instagram handle. So that I went and found his and I added that. And I didn't want this left side of the graphic to be blank, so I went and just found some extra text to put in there. You can really put whatever. I just put something about the stadium being one of the best stadiums in college football. And right there, I was just trying to figure out the best font for the X handle, and then I was putting the Twitter logo or the X logo that I got from online. And then I like to add a really small rectangle that's like, it looks like it's like coming from behind the player and then pointing like into the X handle. I just think that looks cool. It kind of makes it stand out a little bit more. And you can adjust it to what looks good on yours. And after adjusting that to your liking, you're done. Here's the final result, and if you made it to the end of the video, thank you for following along. I appreciate it. And if you have any suggestions on who I should do next, just drop it in the comments. Thank you.